In the Bible, in the New Testament, in the Gospel according to John, it says, "In the beginning was the Word." But I think in the beginning was the tiger. I had a dream where the tiger and I stood side by side, and the air was alive with the music of our beating hearts. "This is my tiger," I said. "Isn't she beautiful? Her teeth cut like diamonds, but they shine like stars." Then the tiger purred. The purr became a growl. The growl became a word. The time to dance is now. Hand, huh, ha, he, huh, ha, I, tool. How about taking a cudgel of some rods of a fire? Word, 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 word. Mother, banana, berry, beetle, grub, yam, sister, uncle, brother, father, cousin, kin, clan, impala, monkey, cheetah, catfish, bow and arrow, hook and line, hunger, death, desire, dance, dream, moon, wind, wolf, enemy, dog, friend. Animal fur, obsidian, seashell, river, lake, ocean, barter boat, wheel, sickle dam, plow, millet, rice, maize, water canal. Goat, horse, cattle, cow, priest, king, city wall, prison, slave, wife, road, army, empire, ritual, sacrifice. Planet, alphabet, tablet, scroll, number, circle, triangle, star, festival, temple, diamond, gold, paper, money, poetry, war, castle, kingdom, pilgrim, pope, nativity, communion, jihad, hijra, lord and lady, surf and outlaw, carnival, cathedral, catapult, crusade, compass, telescope, sextant, astrolabe, buccaneer, sugar cane, cotton gin, slave trade, printing press, protest, guillotine, barricade. Factory, foundry, Model T, monopoly, gasoline, caffeine, telephone, saxophone, black hole, rock and roll, blue suede, free trade, concrete, Wall Street, war crime, picket line, colony, corporation, contraception, insurrection. Hospital, popsicle, methadone, chromosome, pizzeria, gonorrhea, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, penicillin, television, crucifix, lipstick, lipstick, crucifix, Auschwitz. Blood, brain, demon, idea, mud, angel, reason, IKEA, love, anger, grief, absolution, vaccination, air pollution, education, evolution, inspiration, revolution, danger, freedom, building, breeding. Without a we are, there is no I am. The river was a god until we built a dam. Growing up out of the river, out of the dark brown mud of an African rain, growing up out of the river, swimming in the centuries, black Athena of the ancient world, dancing in the triangle and the square, Pythagoras and astronomy, Moses and Deuteronomy, papyrus and the hieroglyph, tempting Plato to leave his cave and question the universe, swept over by the Hyksos, Romans and Mohammedans, Christians and Napoleons, British and the never-ending battle of wind and river, sand and mud, mother of the Mediterranean, the Red Sea and the Aegean, bowed down under the centuries, the brown top of Africa surrounded by a new black mud that is drowning Arabia in a sea of blood, and the wind beings rise up, desert winds sweeping the continents, shivering the spiderweb world of Sky and Fox, BBC, Al Jazeera. Listen to the children growing up out of the river where the Nile Delta sings, in the cotton field spring, in the spinning wheel whine, in the factory roar, in the millions you pour into Tahrir Square chanting, Bau, Dimana, Ubau, Kalawina, you have stolen our blood and kidneys, Ubnisha, Echna, Uhalina, we are the starving families. You have given our land to strangers. You have traded in lies and torture. You have dined on blood and murder. You live in palaces, drive by us in limousines, fly over us in jets, rule over us as if we were nothing but slaves. Now we rise from the grave, and you will do anything to stop us. Ballot boxes stuffed full of corpses, rape and religion wedded to make monsters. And yes, you can kill us in millions, but how will you live then? Who will feed you? Who will dig your wells of water and oil? Who will build your chariots and palaces? Who will build your magnificent tombs? You will never defeat us. We carry the earth on our backs. We open our mouths and speak in flame. We lift up our eyes and see it is you who are afraid. We will bury you, and your bones will nourish our dreams. Out of the barrel of a gun I sped, into the body of a black man, into the body of a black boy. Boy, assume the position. Spread them wide in front of your girlfriend, in front of your mother, in front of your daughter and son. Put you in prison, yes, and I kill plenty. But even better, I make you into your own death penalty. I am the war on terror, you are the enemy within. Man or woman, high or low, don't bother to show me your diploma, it's there on your skin. You are the flame of resistance that I can never quite extinguish. You are the angry fire that I fear more than truth, and I am the definition of liar. You are the light that blazed up in Tottenham and 100 other places, so bright it could be seen across the Mediterranean. I am the darkness waiting. You are the stand-up straight of a new generation. You are the broken glass and torn up pavement. You are the golden beach beneath, if only you can find it. I am the man on TV calling you mindless. I watch you change into every color and race, communicate in ways I can't keep up with, be brave 1,000 times in every hour, but look around, I still have power. I am the bullet and the gun, I am the serpent tongue, I move armies, empty bellies turn bones to dust. I am a treasure chest of fantasy, pleasure, and shame. I have access to your brain more often than you do. I'm running with you on your feet. It's my arm, too, that torched your neighbor's shop. My fingers you must free from an iron grip around your thoughts. Kettling you 4 long days and nights, letting you burn the wrong places, keeping you out of the right. Revolution is a hurricane and the wind blows wildly when young lions roar in pain and strike out blindly. Jackals hide in the tall grass, waiting their chance until you learn to fight with wisdom. I rule the dance. Is the sound mix okay? Can you hear it? Okay, hear the words and everything. Okay. So, until you learn to fight with wisdom, and that begs a question. I have to come out and say, although I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, I'm claiming I have wisdom to pass on, and that's what I'm trying to do in these songs, is to get across some of the things that I've learned over the years. And I'm claiming I have wisdom not because I'm some great genius or some great leader, but because I was alive during some of the great revolutionary upsurges of the 60s and 70s and 80s, the black liberation struggle in the United States, the national liberation struggles that were going all over the world, especially in Vietnam, the anti-war movement, the women's liberation struggle that rose up again in the 70s. And I was there for that stuff. And I saw Panthers on the street. And I learned from all of this. And when I was in 1968, when the Black Panther Party at a rally in Oakland on May 1st passed out 500 red books, the quotations of Mao Zedong, to everyone in the crowd, I was not there. But the people who taught me, who schooled me about revolution were there, and that provoked them, and they learned from that, and they passed it on to me, and I'm trying to pass some of that on in these poems that I've been writing and that I've written in a dialogue with the spoken word scene. And I remember the first time I heard a Black Panther speak. It was at a big peace rally in San Francisco. Marijuana smoke wafting up into the heavens. Both Spocks were speaking. Dr. Spock, who taught you how to raise your kids. He was a pretty good guy, actually. And Spock from Star Trek, who was a great guy. And a lot of other speakers. And then David Hilliard, who was the highest-ranking member of the Black Panther Party, who was not either dead or in jail, got up on the speaker's platform and said, okay, you guys, you all want peace? And yeah, peace. And you really want peace? Yeah, peace, peace. You really want peace? Yeah, peace, peace. Well, you're not going to get it with all these fucking flags. And because there were all kinds of American flags there. That was part of the idea of people were saying, yeah, we carry the flags because to remind that, so that the right-wingers can't take the credit for the flags, which stand for, freedom and democracy and owning slaves. I think half the people who signed the Declaration of Independence were slave owners. And he went on, amidst our horror and our booze, telling us how far up the ruling class's ass we were if we were waving a flag that people hated all over the world. And we tried to boo him off the stage, actually, but we were too stoned. And the only thing I remember of that rally was his speech. I went home thinking about what he'd said. And it was that seed that was planted that caused me to learn the other things I think I've learned. And now there's this great rising up all over the world now, starting with the Arab Spring, the Occupy movement, the Squares movement in Greece, rising up in Brazil and in Turkey, and rising up again in Egypt, because, of course, this is only the beginning. And the ruling the U.S. and the ruling class naturally move in and try and turn these situations to their advantage, but people still keep fighting back. But I think there was a whole century of revolution, and we haven't learned enough from it. And one of the signs of that for me is that people are still talking about democracy as if it were this perfect thing, that if we just had democracy. And I think, God, have you ever seen an American election? And they try and fudge the statistics a bit, and there's a bit of cheating in the election, but it is pretty much of a vote, but it's superimposed over a class society with huge divisions between the rich and the poor, and huge differences in power, and differences between mental and manual labor, differences between men and women. And when you impose democracy, but the bottom line is all these class divisions, the bottom line is you get a kind of democracy that keeps the rich in power. And that's what you get with democracy. Back in the Middle Ages, they had this thing called the church. And it was their gig to tell you God's will and what to do about it. Then Martin Luther hit the nail on the head and said, you decide. But that was too simple and way too dangerous. So they backed off, made a few changes, and come up with this thing called democracy. Who decides? Democracy. Where God is the man with the TV stations, God is the man with the guns to take them, God is the man with the money to buy the guns to take the stations to convince the nation that he is the suppository of divine revelation. Who decides? Well, we all took a vote and I voted against it, but who decides? Well, I don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about it. Who put the lines on the map that make the corpses fall on one side while the other side plays? Democracy. Who drew the lines around Palestine? Who dug a ditch around an oil field and called it Kuwait? They say there are no pacifists and gasoline lines, but when the majority votes for national salvation, when the majority votes for mass incineration, when the majority votes for racial purification, fuck them. That's it. So what's the answer then? Theocracy? And certainly there are groups, there are fundamentalist groups of every variety, Christian, Islam, Hindu, who are saying that's what we need is a more God-centered state. And there's also a halfway position that's more postmodern and hip, which says that, well, the Enlightenment, the period in European history in the 1700s when they kicked off theocracy, it went too far. And the problem was that we have too much rationality now. And my view is just the opposite, is we don't have enough rationality yet. We don't have enough consciousness yet. And that the people who fought against and fought to free themselves and free the world from theocracy in Europe in the Middle Ages went pretty far, but they didn't go far enough because they were a prisoner of their own times. And I wanted to explore this in poetry, and so I started reading about this period. And I came across the Great Encyclopedia. I'd heard about this a little bit in high school history, I think, but encyclopedias, I mean, they hardly exist at all now, but when I was a kid, they were like 20 volumes of old farts speaking with great authority and very conservative views on different topics in the world, and I couldn't really get behind it. But as I read about the encyclopedia, it was quite different back then because they were writing about all the knowledge of the day and they were pitting it against religious superstition, and they had to be very savvy about it too. They couldn't just write and say, this book by, say, Spinoza, who was a free thinker. What a great word, a free thinker. You know, it was a bad word back then. They couldn't write a book about Spinoza and say this guy was great. So instead, they would write a book about Spinoza and say, this disgusting, despicable human being is attacking the Pope, is attacking Christianity, and is attacking our king, and he's awful in every possible respect. And so I think you need to know everything he says in great detail so that you can understand just how awful it is. And the encyclopedia was written with strategies like that, with that basic goal in mind of liberating the human mind and breaking free of theocracy and superstition. And at the center of it was a guy named Denis Diderot, who was a pretty admirable guy. His background, his father was a tradesman. And while a lot of the other people who wrote for the encyclopedia, like Rousseau and Voltaire, though they made great contributions, they also kind of hung out in the palaces and the courts and wore powdered wigs and dressed finely. Denis Diderot wore the same kind of workman's clothes that his father wore, so that he would never forget where he came from and who he was working for. And he was the driving force behind this encyclopedia. And so that was kind of my way in to understand the process of what was so great about the Enlightenment, but also what its weaknesses were. So, the Enlightenment. Je m'appelle Denis Diderot. Okay, the rest of this is in English, but he was French. He was French, so I thought I'd give it a go. Je m'appelle Denis Diderot. sentenced me to 21 years of frequent hunger and constant hard work. I thanked the judges and rolled up my sleeves. We were building a dictionary of the world, covering everything related to human curiosity. So naturally, we began sniffing at the asshole of the universe, where the most beautiful flowers grow in shit, the sweet smell of stink, the love of calluses, rough hands, dumb pleasures, howls of pain, life-hungry death, filth and excess, the Word made flesh, and yet, glowing inside, like a morning sunrise, the rational mind. We collected everything, studied the work of every hand, documented every skill, engaged the great minds of our continent, cast it all into movable type, fired up printing presses day and night, shipped out books by the wagon load, trailing mule shit and wheel ruts, crossing rivers, dodging floods. We were an industry of the mind, making a new kind of property, selling it to all kinds of people, not only priests and scholars. They drank us down in the tea and coffee houses, and when they opened their mouths, our words came out, but in a new blend with the flavor of each new mind, and it bubbled over into the streets and alleys, palaces and dives. Even just talking was intoxicating as we all drank down the spirit of the times. How could we be to blame for the Holocaust to come when we were fighting for the magic of the mind's wonders, for the freedom to ask any question? We were not an infection, not fanatics. We were the enemy of everything dogmatic. And revolution was not a religion. It was a clap of thunder. It was a prison break over the crumbling walls of a dying empire out into the wide open space. We were the liberators of the human race. How could we be to blame for napalm and the atom bomb, slavery, genocide, and a planet ripped wide open and gutted for profit and pleasure? Time out for dialectics. We live in a metaphysical world. Physical, because even the invisible is material, matter in motion, an infinite ocean of repetition and change. Metaphysical, because we never see it the way it is. We see it the way we make it to be, which isn't to say it's make-believe, it's make-happen. And the happening is how we see, until it becomes a habit, and then it becomes how we don't see. Don't see the new. Don't even see the possibility of the new. But one divides into two. That's dialectics. For example, if I could use this chair here. Metaphysics says the chair is there. I know it's there because when I sit on it, my ass doesn't hit the floor. Metaphysics says the chair is there. Dialectics says, yes, it is there. On the other hand, no, it fucking isn't. Everything divides into two because everything is coming and going, never entirely here or there, but always kind of on the way. We look out at the world and see objects floating in space, but there is no truly empty space and no absolutely indivisible objects. Everything is process, movement, and storm. One divides into two, the old and the new, the dying away and the fighting to be born. That's dialectics. Back to the Enlightenment. We were born into a world of circles, tied up in tradition, bowed down in obligation to those who stood outside above our circle, who were only ever in a higher circle. I bow to you, you bow to him, he bows to the Lord bows to the king, and we all bow down to God or the devil. It doesn't really matter which, because even hell is in circles. And in a world like this, property was kind of democratic, because it wasn't truly property until it could be taken away. by anybody, from anybody. The democracy of money. Property was individuality. Property broke down borders. Property was the atomic one multiplied by infinity. Property was possibility. Without property, there was no trade, no travel from country to country. Without property, there was no geography. And when we found we could turn the products of the mind into property, peasants who played violin for the lord and lady's pleasure became composers, makers of sheets of music that could be bought and sold. Even ideas became a new kind of gold. And what could you buy with it? Freedom, the freedom of things in the marketplace of ideas. There are those who argue that true science and philosophy began with money, that the idea of a universal substance wasn't simply dreamed up, it was invented. Money became a fact. Then it became an idea. Only then did we ask, if anything can be measured in money, what is it that money measures? And so it began, the search for a universal glue that would bind us together. But one divides into two. And if money is the measure, it must also be true that anything can be broken into pieces and counted as property. Books, property. Ideas, property. Cows, property. Loaves of bread, property. Men, property. Women, property. We should have known, if anything can be measured in money, property is in ownership. It's being owned. Capital by Karl Marx, chapters 1 through 4. The beast speaks. If I were alive, I would be your greatest lover. I would build you cities, feed your children, fill up your lives with music and dancing. I would cover the earth with wheat fields and rice paddies, drill down into its core to pull out strings of steel and oil. I would scrape the sky with desert sand melted into glass, cool the hot, heat the cold, charm the fish out of the ocean, and teach the trees to stand in a row and rain down manna. If I were alive, I would teach you the meaning of hell. I would blast you with war, rip your children from your arms, swallow them in famine, smother them into silence, dry up their tears with death. I would teach you to fear your neighbor, train you to march in step. You might even come to believe in me. Isn't this how a wounded God would love? With kindness and gifts, wonderful gifts, mixed in with pieces of heartless cruelty. And if my cruelty is on a global scale, so are my gifts. And the greatest gift of all, I would do this through you. How else could it be? You made me. Now I make you. I am the law of value, the profit and loss ledger of the earth. I was born in the gulf between what you can do and what you were worth. And look around, you can do miracles. But what are you worth? How much do you eat? Do you live in a house or on the street? What does it take to make and replace you? That much no one can take away from you and still own you. But after that, everything is fair game. After that, it becomes worthwhile to own a slave. After that, the more you make, the more there is to steal, until you who produce the food become the meal. And the wonders you have made become a curse, become a plague, become a gang of howling wolves. But somehow they are riding in sleighs, and it's you pulling at the traces. And the whip cracks. That's me. I am the whip. But the wolves imagine they are in control, and they snarl and slash at each other as they drive you forward. And you do grow forward. So what if you leave behind a trail of blood? I am the hurricane that blows you through life. The profit drive, the whip of the world. I am measured in money, but I am not money. I am in every good that goes to market, but I am not physical. I am in every tool, but I am not useful. I am you, your sweat, your time, your mind stolen away from you and congealed into a ghost. Not an evil spirit, but an abstract principle, coded into the grooves of habit and material. I weigh the world and say what is valuable, what counts, and it happens over an almost infinite number of individual transactions. I swallow and digest every exception. I break all regulation. I am the price of everything. I am the universal religion. I am the law. I am God. Kill me, or I will own you forever. So, how do you kill the beast? And I want to make it clear here, this is not like a dividing line question between pacifism and violent revolution, because the beast is not human. The beast is the system of profit-making that controls the world. And there are wolves on top, bloodthirsty, greedy bastard wolves who will do anything to stay on top, but they don't control the system either. It is a system that controls everyone. There are conspiracies galore, but there is no conspiracy that controls overall what's happening in the world. What's happening overall in the world is because of the profit and loss ledgers of the corporations. And to end that, the entire system has to change fundamentally. And so now we're at the point where Arrow reminded me when I did the first run-through, it's called Science, Love, and Revolution. You got to tell people why it's called Science, Love, and Revolution. And another friend of mine said, well, you could write that as an equation. Love plus science equals revolution. Because if you have love in your heart and you have a truly scientific understanding in the world, how can you not be driven to revolution? There's a quote from a famous quote from a lot of you have heard of, I'm sure, from Che Guevara. Let me say, at the risk of seeming ridiculous, that a revolutionary must be motivated by feelings of great love. I've never understood that because I never understood the first part of the quote. The second part I got, but why? What's ridiculous about that? Of course, if you're a revolutionary, if you're going to be putting your life on the line to change the world, what other powerful motivation could you have but love? And so with that in view, then, I think my path towards communism began with Santa Claus. I mean, the guy wears a red suit, right? What's that about, huh? And it started, we had a family Christmas movie. Back in the days before videos, they used to rerun certain movies over and over again, especially at Christmas time. Our family Christmas movie was Miracle on 34th Street. The original version, John Payne, Maureen O'Hara, Natalie Wood as the child, Gwen Davis, and don't worry, I'm not going to give you the whole plot. But I am going to tell you one scene because it had this huge, profound effect on me. The real Santa Claus is in New York. For God knows why, but there he is. And he decides to take a job working as the Santa Claus in the Macy's department store. And so he's there sitting on his, I don't know, what you could throne, I guess you'd call it, right? Where the kids come up and sit on his lap and tell them what they want for Christmas. And you can see what you think is a mother and child is about to come up to him, but you can see that the woman is desperate to talk to him before the child gets to him. And she takes him aside and she says, this isn't my daughter, it's my stepdaughter. Her parents were killed by the Nazis in Holland. She's Dutch. And she doesn't speak a word of English yet. She just got here. And I tried to explain to her that you won't understand what she's saying. But she says, no, you don't understand. Santa is for every child, all over the world. Of course he'll understand me because I'm a child and he's Santa and he's for every child. And the woman said, I don't know what to do. She's already had her heart broken. I don't want it broken again. And I have a hard time telling this story without tearing up 50 years after the first time I saw it. And of course, in real life, Santa would say, well, fuck, I don't know, buy her some presents, here's a list. But this is a Hollywood movie, and this is the real, true Santa. And he says, don't worry. And he turns to the little girl and he says, well, I don't know what he says because he's in Dutch, but the little girl's eyes light up and she runs and jumps on his lap and they start jabbering away in Dutch, and then they sing a song about Sinterklaas. Okay, I was a little kid then. I didn't understand anything about communism or revolution then, but I did understand that that was the way the world should be, that whenever you went somewhere, no matter how long the journey, no matter how hard the journey, especially if it was a long, hard journey, the first words you should hear when you get there is welcome. Welcome home. And for years and years, decades really, I've tried to write a song that kind of captured the magic of that. Because of course, Santa Claus it's a bullshit capitalist myth that's used just to sell product and make money. But the reason it's so effective for that is because it has this little bit of magic mixed in with it. And finally, here, this is one of the... I was going to mention that this is kind of like the spoken word scene for me has been a little bit, this may seem a little strained, but it's a little bit like the relationship I had with my last love, who was also my first ever love, who broke my heart again and again, but gave me this wonderful gift the last time we were together. She gave me the gift of poetry. I'd never been able to write love poetry before. And finally, in this last relationship with her, I was. And the spoken word scene has given me that same gift again. We haven't broken up. I hope we won't after tonight. I hope we won't ever. And you haven't broken my heart, but for a long time, I'd kind of lost the ability to write optimistic poems that were, I could write angry, bitter poems, but I couldn't write optimistic poems again. And the spoken word scene here has given that back to me. And because of that, I finally succeeded in writing this poem called Crazy Santas Occupy the World. Imagine you were this cool old guy who loved children, truly and deeply. Loved every beat of the way they stiff little tick-tock walk and the monkey talk and the roar or the buzz or the whisper of the butterfly why of honey and wonder and thirsty hunger. They give you their hand with everything in it and your heart lurches into, give me a place to stand and I will move the universe. Squeeze it down into the perfect toy to light the smile inside your eye. Would give you anything. Imagine this, multiplied by every newborn smile in a heartbreak world. If you could be Santa for every boy and girl. Imagine a magic workshop powered by twinkle of the eye drive, quantum indecision, and reindeer jive. Every elf in all 11 dimensions, drugged and demented, but working with manic precision. A just in the nick of time engine, that's why they call you Saint Nick. And in the back of the sleigh, a bag big enough to carry its weight and wishes. This is it, the delicious, impossible minute when every child on the planet is given the one perfect gift that says, this is your world, and you belong in it. Imagine you could do this one wonderful thing, but for the rest of the year, that was all you could do. And the toys would go out and be used up and worn out and broken, and that was good, the way it should be. Toys were made to be broken, not children. But in the war-torn days of the in-between year, the names would change, but it was always King Herod's reign. And his soldiers would go from door to door with bloody swords, while you all worked on through tears and horror, knowing you could never make it right, no matter how magical that one perfect night. What would you do? Would you go on working when you could only give the one magic minute? Better than nothing. And who could argue with arithmetic? Or would you go crazy with the weight of anger and grief? Would you feel responsible? Would you feel like a thief living a life so sweet, full of hard work done well, when so many children are living in hell? Some people can't ever get enough. Give them a minute and they want eternity. The kind who can never be happy with even a scrap of cruelty. They go crazy at the thought of one child dying a needless death. They can't rest. They've got to be moving, doing, making more than a difference, making everything different. These are the crazy Santas who never give up. Crazy Santas mad with love. Crazy Santas get up at the crack of dawn, work boots on, march out onto the field, into the street, get beat, fight back, get shot at, don't stop, live life, hot-wired. Crazy Santas are dangerous, but it's a dangerous world. Some people can't help fighting back whenever they see the weak attacked. They live like champions in the army that never had a chance. Some of them pick up the gun. Some of them live like saints. All of them are powered by love. All of them make mistakes. Some say we need more magic minutes. That's the best we can do. But I believe we need to reach out to eternity. We need to be crazy Santas who never give up. Crazy Santas, mad with love. Did you ever wish you could be like Samson? Hair grown long again, big and strong again, between the pillars of right and wrong again, one mighty shove and then bring it all tumbling down. The end of a nightmare world where baby girls are put to death for the crime of being the wrong sex, where girls and boys are given guns instead of toys and made to fight and die for the light that's stolen from their eyes, cut to fit and pasted on a Wall Street banker's diamond tie clip. Yeah, maybe the whip and the African slave ship have been replaced by the ticker tape and the microchip, and the factory sweatshop has sprouted legs and learned to walk across borders. But every new world order, it's the same old song, where the rich have rights and the poor get wronged, and the chairman of the board and the drug lord and the gun dealer and the born-again politician faith healer, they're all singing in the same choir, swinging and swaying at the same club. You get baptized in fire. They get their sins washed away in oil and money and blood. Did you ever feel like Noah before the flood, praying for the day some vengeful God would say, "I've had enough," and wash them bastards away? Did you ever feel like Hercules, sent out to slay the many-headed beast, but every time you chop off one head, whack, two more grow back? Did you ever feel like you had so much love locked up inside, but you couldn't let it out, couldn't let it go, had to keep hold of an icy cold silence, or you might explode in mindless, raging violence? Living in a Marvel comic book strip, knowing that the planet's in a death grip, looking for a power that can shake it, looking for a weapon that can break it. Look at all the love you got inside you, let it be the fire that ignites you. Living in a world of violence, but the power is love, and the weapon is science. It's dangerous, and it brings on changes, and it opens up possibilities. Even the ground beneath our feet is not so solid, not so safe. They burned scientists at the stake because they were afraid of the trouble we'd make. And you know what? They were right, because we can make day from night. We can turn darkness into light. And the power that reaches out to the stars and into the atom and back in time can turn on a dime. And look at the lock on the prison bars that keep us caged. It's a power that grows from age to age, from the work of the hand and the work of the brain. We think and we do and we dream and we make, and we learn from the lesson of every mistake. And all our achievements and all that is known are built on the bones of what's come before. It's true of the study of stones, stars, biology, and human society. And so when the powers that be sneer at our history, at our victory and defeat in the laboratory of the street, they not only steal from the living, they rob the dead of all they fought and bled and died for. From the back alleys of Paris to the storming of the Winter Palace, from the cane fields of Haiti to the Vietnam rice paddy, from Tiananmen to Tahrir Square, from Malcolm to Marx, Mao to Chairman Mao. These are our bones, our stepping stones to tomorrow. And the modern day vampires try to suck out the marrow of knowledge and vision and the courage that comes with them. But you who are fighting for a world that's not bought and sold, where only in the human heart do you find the truest gold, you must be warriors with heads that are old with wisdom and young with fire. Oh, my sisters, oh, my brothers, don't believe the liars. So, one more poem. This is a poem that expresses my kind of ideals about the way you should live life. And it kind of raises the question of, is it possible to write better than you are? Because I certainly don't live up to what I'm going to be talking about in this poem. In my best years, the best times in my best years, sometimes I have, but more often I've fallen very short. And they say, you know, you have to write about what you know and kind of about who you are. But aren't your ideals part of who you are? So you should be able to write about them too. So this poem, this was inspired by another book by V.I. Lenin, the leader of the Russian Revolution. It's probably his most hated book. And with good reason, because it's a manual for revolution. Not the bricks, the blueprints for barricades and Molotov cocktails, but how do you move from the heart to the head to the street? It's called What Is to Be Done. The revolution will not come until it has pierced your heart. Until every cruelty and injustice, no matter who it is done to, feels as if it were done to you. Until you are naked, open wide, wounded by every homeless cry, a mother to every hungry child, a native son to every tribe, stranded in the forest flame, swallowing smoke and tears of rage, running from the thunder of a helicopter gun. The revolution will not come. Until your back aches and the sun bakes you and the pain breaks you, until every minute of your life hurts and the ripe fruit falls down into the dirt because your fingers and your bones and your brain are numb. The revolution will not come. Until every cop car is looking for you for what you are, not what you do, and you stand on the earth branded by the wrong accent, the wrong color skin, the wrong sexuality, the wrong mother tongue, too fat, too thin, too old, too young. The revolution will not come. Until you walk the street bearing unwanted seed, condemned to breed by men who call you girl and think they fucking own the world. Until you stare up into the hate-filled face of a rapist thrusting into you, when you can smell his breath, taste the rancid kiss, when your stomach twists in anger and disgust, when you can feel all this as if it were done to you. It's not enough, because the revolution will not come until it has made you wise. So what if you hate injustice? So what if you're willing to die to make a change? It's not enough to be brave, not even enough to love unless love leads to wisdom when push comes to shove. So you learn to read books and faces. You study what gender and race is. You look at science and the economy, at every class and group in society. You study the past, but you don't live in it. You don't worship it. You don't pick through the rubble for a lost God to believe in. You read history not with a branding iron, but a blowtorch. You are not a king. You are not a priest. You are not singing in the fucking choir. You are the fire that burns through history. Your genealogy is written in the ashes of burnout villages, crucified slaves, weavers chained to their looms, heretics burned at the stake, screaming out the truth. How many thousands of years of fighting each other over the never enough, one class after another rising to the top and beating back down everyone else with laws and religion and bullets when you don't listen. How many thousands of years of system after system and always the same fundamental division. You work, they rule. But you are more than just a talking tool. Let the revolution be your school. Study the connections, and you begin to see the chains of slavery or chains of power too. They connect you to an army of the dispossessed, and it's an army you will need because the revolution will not come until it has made you strong. Power is a good thing. Try living without it. But without a doubt, it divides into two. The power to win is the power to lose. Power is nothing but the power to choose. It's only as good as how you use it. But never forget, you are not begging for mercy. You are fighting for power. How will you break free of the ingrained habits of a lifetime? How will you gain control of your own minds? How will you bring it together to set off a chain reaction? And if you win, how will you fight off the armies that come to crush you? And if you win, how will you feed the world? And if you win, how will you carry through? How will you free the world? Be leaders who know how to be led. Be teachers who know how to be taught. Revolution is war. It has to be fought. They got the guns and the weapons of mass communication. You got the power to the people that comes with organization. You got the power to the people, but you better believe they hate it. If you give them a chance, they'll break it. You know, it's only as good as you make it. You got the power to the people. Are you ready to take it?